Welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Before we start today's service, I'd like Alan Searle to come up and say a few words about the auction.
Good morning. I thank you for inviting me up here. I'd like to... Whose phone? Mom? Mom, yeah, but I'm just...
I'm not calling it a bad time.
Well, I was sort of...
Because I wouldn't want to do that. But you haven't called me, Blaine.
I called you yesterday, Mom.
But you didn't call me about the you-know-what.
You know what?
Well, you probably didn't call me about it because you didn't want me there. Me. So I would brought you into this world. Oh, but you told Dick Ride, didn't you?
Did Ride? Oh, you mean Deirdre?
Yes, that's what I said.
Well, we broke up, so no, I haven't told her.
Well, she wasn't any good. And you can afford to be choosy. Anyway, what about this auction you didn't invite me to? You didn't tell me, and your dad is heartbroken. You didn't tell him. I'll put him on.
Mom, you don't have to... But, hi, Dad.
Are there any electric drills in this auction? Because if there are, I want you to bid on one.
But, Dad, you already have 16 electric drills.
Well, but you can't have too many.
I suppose so.
And a shed. I can't have too many sheds, you know.
I'll look out for you, Dad.
Okay, well, bye-bye, son. Great talking to you. Here's your mom.
Great talking to you too, Dad.
I want you to bid on all those meals so we can go to them together. But you need to tell them I'm allergic to caviar.
Caviar?
Oh, I break out where you don't want to break out when I have caviar.
I'll have a word.
And then I'm going to come and stay with you for a week or 5 after the auction so we can do all these things together, Wayne. Won't that be fun?
Yes, that'll be great. Oh, great, Mom, I have a great idea, but Mom, I'm hoping to bid on some of the items myself. There's a great choice, and I even thought about putting in an item for bidding, and maybe I can bid on it for myself. It's a week away. I could send you to Missouri or Gorst or Kabul. Won't that be fun? Oh, absolutely, Mom. I'm looking forward to seeing you really much. And for all you yous out there, and pumpkins, zombies, lions, sheep, and princesses, please enjoy this auction too. Please bid. There are literally hundreds of items. Some of them are available for you to see in the administration building after the service. And please, please bid. Who knows, you might get to save Dwayne.
Well, again, welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are so glad to be together in this loving, vibrant community, and I mean vibrant today. Whoever you are and wherever you come from for this hour, we here are one gathered congregation, and all are welcome.
All right, now to continue a bit of the silliness. Check, there we go, thank you. To continue a bit of the silliness of this morning, does everyone who wants a noisemaker have a noisemaker? Yay! That's what we like to hear. Okay, the choir and I are gonna do a thing over here, but every time I turn around like this and start going like this, what are you supposed to do? Yeah! Perfect. And every time I turn around, okay? Sound good? All right. Let's go. We come from the mountain, living in the mountain. Go back to the
was so lovely. Well, my name is Darielle Stoneflow, actually. Marcia Kristen wasn't able to be here today as your lay leader. And in the spirit of our KUF mission, and as we strive to be more inclusive, I offer you this self-description today, which you will never hear again. I am an elf woman. I am of druid class. I have silver pointed ears, of course, dark hair, a dark tunic, and a dark cape. Our worship leader this morning is Reverend Carol McKinley. And Carol McKinley comes to us from Olympia, where she is an affiliated community minister. She has spoken here regularly at KUF and has been a source of support and encouragement for our congregation. Welcome. And if you're visiting this morning, welcome. If you are here in person, we look forward to welcoming you after the service during our coffee hour. And if you are attending online, boy, are you missing some interesting things out here. Please introduce yourself in the chat, though. Either way, we are so glad you're here. And I invite you to follow along in the order of service. For those of attending virtually, all the links for the service, including the order of service, are on our website and in this morning's worship service email. And if you are here in the sanctuary this morning, please silence your electronic devices. For a few announcements this morning, the Grief Support Group will meet at noon today in the Elmore Room, and today is our monthly potluck and Halloween fun. So we'll be setting tables up here in the sanctuary, getting things together for the dessert walk trail after the service. And while that's happening, you can register in the foyer for the costume contest. There are 4 categories to vote on: cutest, scariest, hairiest, and funniest. And then dessert walk tickets are free for those 18 and younger and can be purchased by adults. So come join in the fun. Other announcements are also available on our website at kuf.org or in our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. And we want to take some time to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. And now Reverend Carol will come up for the opening words.
I'm the Reverend Carol McKinley, and I am an older woman with white hair, and today I'm wearing a black jacket with fall colors on it of oranges and golds and yellows. Our opening words are from the Reverend Karen G. Johnston. As we gather this morning, let us be a people of not forgetting. Let us practice holding collective memories that might otherwise slip into that enormous void that sucks at and corrodes any future we hold dear. Let us practice honoring truth-telling up from the past that must come fully into the now, lest we falter and fall, lest the whole remain in pieces. Let not our need for comfort or simplicity, for easy forgiveness or false pardon, smother the heartbreak that still needs healing. Let us practice resilience with reckoning. Let us marry memory with promise. Let us dance in the tension we find there. Let us rest in the integrity we cultivate there. Let us be partners with the possibility that emerges there. Good morning. It's good to be together, and I am especially pleased to see so many special guests. We have pumpkins, and we have ghosts and spooks and butterflies and all sorts of special guests. So I hope we all enjoy our time together this morning.
All right, I'd like to welcome up the Staricka family to come and light the chalice. Which may or may not be an easy thing this morning. We all have those mornings. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your help this morning. Yay. All right, let us light our chalice with these words from the Reverend Scott Taylor. We light this chalice in honor of the history that holds and heals us, for the stories of heroism that inspire our own, for the loved ones long gone who helped us to see our better selves, for reminders of those who paved the path before us and blessed us with advantages we didn't earn on our own. These memories do not live in the past. They carve the contours of our present. They are here today. Look, listen, let them in. May their light guide our way. Thank you. That's the best noise ever. So please join me in the spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We bow diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. Our next hymn, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden, was written by UU composer Amanda Erdis Kessler. The lyrics call the directions and connect us to the interdependent web of existence. So please rise in body and or spirit to join in singing hymn number 1067. for all ages, but the mic up.
Good morning. This morning I am wearing a well-loved velvet pointed hat and Gryffindor. And a Gryffindor robe, which is black with a maroon hood. Today I will be sharing with you a story. This month is the gift of heritage. And this morning's story is about a sweet badger. It's gonna roll off. Wait, this is the hard part. Finding the pocket again. There I go. Badger's Parting Gift by Susan Varley. Badger was dependable, reliable, and always ready to help when help was needed. He was also very old, and he knew almost everything. Badger was so old that he knew he must soon die. Badger wasn't afraid of death. Dying meant only that he would leave his body behind, and as his body didn't work as well as it had in days gone by, Badger wasn't too concerned about that. His only worry was how his friends would feel when he was gone. Hoping to prepare them, Badger had told him that someday soon he would be going down the long tunnel, and he hoped they wouldn't be too sad when it happened. One day, as Badger was watching Mole and Frog race down the hillside, he felt especially old and tired. He wished more than anything that he could run with them, but he knew his old legs wouldn't let him. He watched Mole and Frog for a long time, enjoying the sight of his friends having a good time. It was late when he arrived home. He wished the moon good night and closed the curtains on the cold world outside. He made his way slowly down to the warm fire that was waiting for him deep underground. He had his supper and then sat down at his desk to write a letter. When he had finished, he settled down in his rocking chair near the fire. He gently rocked himself to and fro, and soon was fast asleep, having a strange yet wonderful dream like none he'd ever had before. Much to Badger's surprise, he was running. Ahead of him was a very long tunnel. His legs felt strong and sure as he ran towards it. He no longer needed his walking stick, so he left it lying on the floor of the tunnel. Badger moved swiftly, running faster and faster through the long passageway until his paws no longer touched the earth. He felt himself turning end over end, tumbling and falling, but nothing hurt. He felt free. It was as if he had fallen out of his body. The following day, Badger's friends gathered anxiously outside Badger's door. They were worried because he hadn't come out to say good morning as he always did. Fox broke the sad news that Badger was dead and read Badger's note to them. It said simply, "Gone down the long tunnel. Bye-bye, Badger." All the animals had loved Badger, and everyone was very sad. Mole especially felt lost, alone, and desperately unhappy. In bed that night, Mole could only think of Badger. Tears rolled down his velvety nose, soaking the blankets he clung to for comfort. Outside, it began to snow. The winter had begun, and soon a thick layer of snow hid the animals' homes, where they would stay snug and warm during the cold months. The snow covered the countryside, but it didn't conceal the sadness that Badger's friends felt. Badger had always been there when anyone needed him. The animals all wondered what they would do now that he was gone. Badger had told them not to be unhappy, but it was hard not to be. As spring drew near, the animals often visited each other and talked about the days when Badger was alive. Mole was good at using scissors, and he told them about the time Badger had taught him how to cut out a chain of moles from pieces of folded paper. Paper moles had littered the ground that day. Mole remembered the joy he'd felt when he had finally succeeded in making a complete chain of moles with all the paws joined. Badger had helped him take his first slippery steps on the ice. Badger had gently guided him across the ice until he had gained enough confidence to glide out on his own. Fox remembered how, when he was a young cub, he could never knot his tie properly until Badger showed him how. Starting with the wide end of the tie, it's right over left, once around to the back, up, then down through the crossover, and holding the back of the tie, push the knot up to the neck. Fox could now tie every knot ever invented, and some he'd made up himself. And of course, his own necktie was always perfectly knotted. Badger had given Mrs. Rabbit his special recipe for gingerbread and had shown her how to bake gingerbread rabbits. Mrs. Rabbit was well known throughout the countryside for her excellent cooking. As she talked about her first cooking lesson with Badger so long ago, she could almost smell the wonderful fragrance of gingerbread fresh from the oven. Each of the animals had a special memory of Badger, something he had taught them that they could now do extremely well. He had given each of them something to treasure, a parting gift that would become all the more special each time it was passed on to others. As the last of the snow melted, so did the animals' sadness. Whenever Badger's name was mentioned, someone remembered another story that made them all smile. One warm spring day, as Mole was walking up the hillside where he'd last seen Badger, he wanted to thank his friend for his parting gift. "Thank you, Badger," he said softly, believing that Badger would hear him. And somehow, Badger did. Reading this story makes me think of all the wonderful people that we've had as part of this fellowship who themselves have gone down the long tunnel. And I remember some really special things. So that heritage that our ancestors have left behind truly is a very special parting gift. Please now rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our children and goblins and Spider-Man and pumpkins and ghosts on their way.
We gather as a religious community to give each, is this on?
It is, but you're very quiet. I could hear it so clear.
It was much louder before. There we go. Thank you. We gather as a religious community to give each one of us a place where we can do the work of many. Together, our light is much brighter than a solitary flame. So now is the time in our service where we share in the sacred act of giving, an expression of gratitude transformed into generosity that breathes life into our mission. And as part of our mission that inspires us to act on our beliefs, we share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Our charitable giving recipient for the month of October is the Rejuvenation Community Daycare Center. Rejuvenation Community Daycare Center provides services for people surviving homelessness or living in poverty. And in a moment, our ushers will move among us with baskets to collect the offering. Donations placed in the basket will go to the Rejuvenation Community Daycare Center. And if you would like your offering to be used for KUUF, please use one of the envelopes provided to you with your order of service when you came into the sanctuary today. For those of us joining us online, you may go to our website, kuuf.org, and select the Giving tab for PayPal and mailing information. And if this is your first time at KUUF, feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence is your gift. Let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our community, which is sacred to so many of us. And let us also enjoy a gift of music from our wonderful choir. Thank you. Now is the time for our joys and sorrows. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows are lessened. And we have abundance today. This is from Jennifer Ingalls, A Candle for Sorrow, for her many nursing students who are experiencing personal crisis and tragedies at this time. We hold you deep, deep in our hearts. And we have a joy from Liz Roberts and Brian Watson. The joy is that our son attended the Georgetown, Texas first ever Pride celebration this past Thursday with his friend. And we have one from Megan Shepard. A joy is that after 6 years of retirement, Megan has rejoined her dance company and will be performing this February in Seattle. Yeah. And another joy from Liz Roberts. Sorry for the feedback there. And this is for remembering her longtime friend and longtime KUF member, Sally Richardson, this morning. Sally was a fun and frolic member and loved Halloween. So her spirit is smiling on us this morning. And we have a sorrow from Terry. Oh dear. After 98 years, she says, my dad passed on Tuesday His family was with him. He loved boating and barbershop music. I miss him, Terry. Oh. Blessings for his journey. And then we have candle for Jessica Demick from her. Jessica is asking for your prayers and positive energy for her upcoming surgery on the morning of Friday, November 3rd. If you are home and it's convenient, will you light a candle during that time? This is the 5th time going into the operating room this year. Perhaps it could be the last time, ? Or at least a big step toward healing and recovery. She says, I continue to appreciate all the love and support from our KUF members. Very important candle. And the last 2 are from Marsha and Glenn Kristen, actually. And their joy, our joy, is that 1, we submitted our application for a building permit this week. Huge for our family compound co-housing. Long time in coming. And our second great joy is our oldest daughter, Emma, and her husband, Emma, who grew up in this fellowship. They are expecting their first child in April. My first grandchild. So. And we light one last candle for all the joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share. And please join me now in prayer or intention. In the spirit of community in which we find strength and common purpose, we share our joys, our sorrows, our hopes and dreams. We have turned our minds and hearts toward one another in trust, giving love, seeking comfort, and celebrating together. We are a part of the web of life that makes us one with humanity, one with all the universe. In all the moments of our lives, for those loved ones and events shared this morning, and for those we yet hold in the silence of our hearts, we are truly grateful for the love and support of this beloved community. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen, and blessed be. And please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life, which is hymn number 123 in our gray hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen. And I have the first reading this morning. This is from Isabel Wilkerson. We in the developed world are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable loam and rock, heaving and contracting over generations, cracks patched, but the deeper ruptures waved away for decades, centuries even. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves, quote. And yes, Not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stressed cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now, and any further deterioration is, in fact, on our hands.
In his poem, A House Called Tomorrow, Alberto Rios writes, "You are not 15 or 12 or 17. You are 100 wild centuries, bringing with you in every breath and in every step everyone who has come before you, all the yous that you have been, the mothers of your mother, the fathers of your father. If someone in your family was trouble, 100 were not. The bad do not win, not finally, no matter how loud they are. We simply would not be here if that were so. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone. You are the breaking news of the century. You are the good who has come forward. Look back only for as long as you must. Then go forward into the history you will make. And those who come before you, when you hear thunder, hear it as their applause." Now let us be together for a moment of silence, followed by our post-reflection music.
Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears. Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears.
This month's Unitarian Universalist Soul Matters theme, Heritage, inspired me to ask myself, what is my heritage? What stories were passed on to me that shaped my understanding of my family's history? What was possibly missing from those oft-repeated stories that might have deepened my understanding of my roots? During my childhood, my father, mother, brother, and I spent a lot of time at our family farms in the Palouse country of Washington's Whitman County. My grandparents, both my mother's parents and my father's parents, in the 1890s homesteaded neighboring lands along the Palouse River and settled into the life of farmers, planting winter wheat in the fall and harvesting that wheat the following summer. My parents, as young adults, had moved away from the farms to live in Spokane, but we spent many weekends there visiting our relatives. Around the dinner table, many of the adult conversations were about farming. The best winter wheat to plant, turkey red, by the way. The rain needed or not needed, the price of a new combine, the rate for wheat in the Portland market, the bushel per acre yield that year, and of course, a lot of talk about the weather. Like all farmers, they followed weather forecasts with a mixture of hope and despair. Would there be enough snow to provide spring moisture to sprout the seeds and keep it growing as the eastern Washington summer heated up? Would the early summer be warm enough to encourage the wheat to grow, but not so warm that the tender green shoots would shrivel in the heat? As the wheat ripened to golden stalks and harvest time neared, the farmers held fervent hopes that a heavy summer hailstorm or a wildfire from a discarded cigarette would not wipe out the crops, that the harvest would be abundant so that the bank loans that financed the fall planting and new equipment could be repaid. So these stories of life in the Palouse country, of my Scottish grandparents immigrating to America, claiming a homestead and farming on that Palouse River land, shaped my understanding of my family's history. Now, I loved that land along the river and spent hours playing on the banks of the slowly moving water. It never occurred to me to think about who or what might have lived there before my grandparents built their two-room homestead cabin and plowed the land. Even when my brother showed me arrowheads he found in the river shallows, I saw them as relics of a time long past. I did not connect those hunting tools to any people who might have used them. Now, over time, my experience, my education, and awareness of history have expanded what I now see as my full past, has deepened my understanding of roots that were firmly anchored in that Palouse River land long before my European ancestors arrived. Now, perhaps if you are descendants of settlers or homesteaders in these United States, you have experienced a similar growing awareness of the antiquity of human habitation on the land you now inhabit, and that indeed your roots are commingled with those who came before you. I believe that the comparatively recent practice in our congregations and other public spaces of speaking the land acknowledgement has helped us, or perhaps it has spurred us, to recognize the depth of that connection to the past. When we come later, hear the land acknowledgement, hopefully our awareness of earlier roots is stirred. We recognize that our presence on this land, on our land, was not a unique event, but follows and may still be shared with those native peoples who have lived here for many generations. The act of saying the land acknowledgement continues to open my eyes, and perhaps yours, to the reality that the history of where we live did not begin with us. This sanctuary, for example, sits on the traditional lands of the Suquamish people, as we heard in the land acknowledgement. The land my grandfather tilled was land where the Palouse Indians hunted, fished, raised their children. Those descriptors I've used all my life, Palouse country, Palouse River, have taken on a deeper meaning. Those descriptors name a people, the Palouse or Palace, who lived on that land. Those arrowheads my brother found were made, tied to arrow shafts, and used by Palouse people who hunted along the banks of that river. I have no memory of ever hearing in those many family dinner table conversations about the Palouse Indians. Rather, the stories of the family farm began with my Scottish grandparents' homestead. My curiosity about the original inhabitants of the land has grown. I found the Palouse are, not were, but are, culturally related to the Nez Perce people. The Palouse acquired horses early on and became expert riders, breeders, and horse traders. The Appaloosa, with its distinctive spotted coat, durability, and speed, takes its name from that of the tribe. Like so many people, the Palouse suffered from diseases brought by white settlers. In the 1850s, conflicts following a measles epidemic led the Palouse to join with the Cayuse and Yakima tribes in wars against white settlers. And eventually, some individuals joined reservations. Today, the Palouse are enrolled in the Yakima Nation, and they're also recognized by the Colville Confederated Tribes. Now, legal machinations removed the Palouse from their traditional lands. Through numerous treaties with the tribes, those lands became the property of the United States government. In the mid-1800s, this country, in an effort to encourage settlement, that is, white settlement, passed the Homestead Act of 1862. As those white settlers claimed homesteads, built cabins, and plowed the land, Native people were pushed off the land they had once occupied. In 1891, my grandparents immigrated to this country, took advantage of the free land in the West, and established their farm on land the Palouse had once considered their home. So what does my family's story, which may or may not be similar in many ways to your family's story, tell me? First, I realized that many of us have a limited perspective of our family history. All of us, of course, unless we have indigenous or tribal roots, are comparative newcomers to the land we now call home. We may be, as I am, grateful to the ancestors who established homes and created a legacy for us. At the same time, our awareness of how that legacy came about may be growing, and we may also lament the way this land, through wars and broken treaties, became the property of the United States government. It has taught me, however belatedly, that my family and all of us here have a moral obligation to deepen our knowledge of how we came here, how we're connected to the past, of how our time on this earth is not a solitary event, but is shared with those in the past and shared with those who come in the future. As we uncover the wider story of our personal and our collective pasts, we expand our own humanness, connecting us with many others whose lives have impacted ours, perhaps unknowingly. Hearing the land acknowledgement in this fellowship should remind us that the people, the Suquamish, and also the Duwamish, all the Coast Salish peoples, are not people of the far distant past who have disappeared. They are people who still share this land with us. Like us, they are people of the present and of the future. As our awareness of those who were the original human inhabitants of this land deepens, and we acknowledge their lives and their rich cultures, it is important that we take in fully the meaning and the feeling of the words in the land acknowledgement. Like many rituals repeated regularly, the land acknowledgement, as meaningful as it is intended, risks becoming performative, a recitation that, with repetition, loses its meaning, words whose meaning are lost with over-familiarity. So how does a land acknowledgement hold on to its meaning and its intent? First, we can begin by understanding why it is an important step in building relationship. It offers recognition and respect. It counters the false narrative of the European doctrine of discovery by acknowledging the people who were already here. It encourages larger truth-telling about our collective history. Repetition of the land acknowledgement in this space is by itself a small gesture, but it should be done well, with recognition of its full meaning. In an article in The Atlantic this last year, Graham Wood stated, "The acknowledgement should reveal a special relationship between the place or event and the people who are acknowledged. Boilerplate language is an insult." The language becomes meaningful when coupled with authentic relationship and informed action. It can be an opening to greater public consciousness of Native sovereignty and cultural rights. It is an important step to building relationships. Working with tribal members to develop the wording of a land acknowledgement is a step toward repairing relationships with Native communities and also with the land we live on. Collaboration and cooperation open the way to larger truth-telling. Publicly acknowledging the original stewards of the land we are on can be a meaningful way to honor truth by naming indigenous peoples and, yes, to resist erasure of their histories. The power of an acknowledgement lies in the unspoken invitation to learn as much as we can about local treaties, practices, and the people themselves. Imagine the practice of land acknowledgements being widely adopted in all sorts of groups. Imagine cultural venues, classrooms, conference setting, more places of worship, sports stadiums, and town halls acknowledging traditional lands. Millions of people would be exposed, many for the first time, to the names of the indigenous inhabitants of the land they are on, inspiring them to ongoing awareness. So what might action actually look like? My daughter, who worked for the city of Tukwila, told me about that city's schools, how they went beyond acknowledging the Duwamish and Muckleshoot peoples who were that land's original inhabitants. The school district's leadership declared their intent to recognize and work against systems that have historically and culturally enforced and created inequities among all the people they serve. A cultural organization, Seattle Arts and Lectures, in their land acknowledgement, states their commitment to include more Native voices in their programs. Each one of us can continue our own learning, building on the intention of the land acknowledgement by building relationships. Earlier in this service, you spoke together those words of KUUF's affirmation. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. What deeper meanings can we discover in this caring community's land acknowledgement? By speaking and hearing the words acknowledging the Suquamish, we recognize this land's first peoples, I recently learned that the name Suquamish means place of clear salt water in the southern Lushootseed language. And this land acknowledgement is your invitation to learn more about KUUF's neighbors. Have you been to their tribal center? Do you know how tribal government is organized? How it relates to the state of Washington and to Kitsap County? You have a number of opportunities to deepen your awareness of roots in this shared land. Next August, plan to attend the Suquamish People's Chief Seattle Days, 3 days of public activities, including salmon bakes, always a big hit, that celebrate and honor Chief Seattle for all his accomplishments. Visit Chief Seattle's gravesite and the nearby Suquamish Heritage Center. And while you're there, find opportunities to talk with the people about how they would like to be acknowledged. Learn more about the experience of contemporary Native Americans, even as some seek to ban those voices. Earlier this month, during Banned Book Week, Native American authors pointed out that among the flurry of recent book challenges and bans in this country are these works by Native American authors. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Colville Spokane member Sherman Alexie. The Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, and a number of children's books, including these titles: Hiawatha the Peacemaker, Fry Bread, Powwow Day, Mary and the Trail of Tears, and The Water Protectors. No, efforts to eradicate Native Americans have not disappeared. Silencing the voices of Native American writers is one more way some have sought to discount, even erase their presence. By reading and sharing books by Native writers, we honor their lives and their art. Making their words more visible is one more way to build relationships with our Indigenous neighbors, to recognize the fullness of their humanity. Joy Harjo, the wonderful Muskogee writer and 3-term poet laureate of the United States, has said, "I don't like the romanticization of Indian people in which Indian people are looked upon as spiritual saviors, as people who have always taken care of the land. We're human beings, but I think different cultures have developed different aspects of humanness." Find opportunities to discover and honor our neighbors' different aspects of humanness. It's a wonderful way to build relationships. In your conversations, ask how they would like to be acknowledged. It should be no surprise to hear individuals, of course, have different perspectives. Some may wish to hear statements honoring elders. Others may wish to hear explicit mention of the occupied, unceded nature of the land. Conversations and forming relationships are not only ways to learn about this land we share, but about present-day challenges tribes are facing. Nick Estes, an American Studies professor at the University of New Mexico, says land acknowledgements can be what he called a pantomime of caring or outrage, mostly by professional class elites and educational institutions. But, he said, what of the real issues facing Indigenous peoples? Housing, employment, child removal, generational poverty, lack of adequate health care, police violence, racism, and erasure. Yes, Indigenous leaders and activists do have mixed feelings about land acknowledgements. While some say they're a waste of time, others are working to make the well-meaning speeches more useful. Land acknowledgements are just words, and words can distract from real issues. But some words are honest. even loving. The words spoken here at KUUF will continue, I hope, to be among those that are honest and loving. Whatever words we use, the land acknowledgement should not be seen as obligatory words to be rushed through, but rather an invitation to consider our own place in the story of colonization and settlement as the opening of our effort to undo a negative legacy. I hope you consider today's service as an invitation to look again at your own family's roots. Were those roots in lands for centuries that were the land of the home and the home of Native people? Who claimed ownership of that land and then ceded it to your ancestors? The world, even the smallest parts of it, is filled with things you don't know, wrote Sherman Alexie. Consider it a privilege to have the opportunity to learn more about this world we inhabit, how our roots are intertwined with so many others who have gone before us. And this does not mean a revision of our own histories, but an expansion of those histories, connecting our humanity with that of others, learning more about how all of us have and continue to express our different aspects of humanness. In the past few months, numerous articles about the use of land acknowledgements had spurred my curiosity to learn more about the people who lived for millennia on the land along the Palouse River in eastern Washington before my grandparents arrived. I have revised my understanding of what I had for most of my life considered our land. Yes, it is our land as certified by a homestead patent signed by then President Grover Cleveland in the 1890s. But it is so much more than that. The meaning of our land necessarily expands and deepens to include the Palouse Indians who lived there long before my family ever arrived in this country. With this broader understanding, my family history becomes more meaningful to me. It is good for me and for all of us to recognize the fullness of our heritage, to acknowledge all of our family's past and how our lives have grown from richness, even the pain of intertwined roots. And this month, of course, is the perfect time to honor those roots, even to deepen them. At this month, at this time of the year, the veil between past and present, between the living and the dead, is believed to be the thinnest. It is a time to recognize our ancestors and all who have gone before us. On All Hallows Eve, on All Souls Day, take time to part that veil and thank all those who came before us, all those who have shared this land, have shared this life with us. Amen, and so may it be. And now let us join together in our closing hymn, number 1001, in the teal hymnal, Breath, and the words will appear on the screen. They are in the crying grass. They are in the moaning rocks. The deaf are not under the earth. Listen too often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. Ancestors' breath and the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Whoosh, whoosh. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in a woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are in with us in our homes beneath the ground. Yet have a pact with the living. Listen more often to things than to being. Listen more often to things than to beings. In the ancestors' breath, in the voice of the waters. After the service is over today, everyone is welcome to join together for the end of the month potluck, as well as Halloween fun and frolic right here in the sanctuary. We now extinguish our chalice with these words from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. We bring into our hearts all those who have gone before us, all those whose living in the world has prepared the soil for our living, all those whose being has enabled our being. Let us also remember those whose existence is seated in our lives today, not only those who are our physical descendants, but also those whose spirit inherit the love we sow, the hope we reap, the promise we harvest. Amen, and so may it be.